G'day guys, Craig here and welcome back to Roaming in the Robbo. So this video is going to be all about our touring vehicle of choice, the Ford Everest. We're going to talk about why we chose it as our tourer, the modifications and accessories we fitted and why, and finally, what limitations there are with this vehicle as a tourer. So let's get into it. Okay, so why did we choose the Ford Everest as a touring vehicle? Well, basically, we didn't. Is a short answer. When we first bought this car, it was just a family car. We were only using it for simple camping trips in a tent. But we decided that we wanted to get out there a bit more, be a bit more comfortable, a bit more self-sufficient, hit those more remote destinations. So that's why we bought the Robbo and started to modify the Everest. So the Robbo's on order. Time to start modifying the Everest. Now in its standard configuration, the Everest is a capable tow vehicle. But if you're going to be hitting those more remote destinations like we've done and are going to continue to do, there are a few items that I think are essential, and I can justify them, to myself at least, every modification we've made and accessory we've fitted. The first modification we made to the Everest was the tyres. These are BFG KO2s. They're an all-terrain tyre with an aggressive tread pattern, a thick sidewall, and they're actually a light truck tyre. They're a really capable all-rounder. They're good on gravel, corrugations, sand, rocks, and on the hard stuff, there's hardly any extra road noise. The Everest comes out standard with 265 60 18s, and we went for 275 65 18s. So they're 10mm wider and 40mm taller, giving me a bigger footprint and a 20mm lift just from fitting these tyres. Now these size tyres fit on the standard Everest suspension with no scrubbing. They also fit in the spare wheel well, which is handy because we got 5 of them. And every 10,000 Ks, I'll do a 5-wheel rotation to bring that spare wheel into play to try and even out the wear and get as much mileage out of these as I can. And at $400 a pop, I'm going to eke out as much as possible from these. Now there is one drawback with these tyres, is that they're heavy. They're 7 kilos heavier per tyre than the standard highway tyres that came with this vehicle. So there's 35 kilos just in tyres, 21 of which is on the rear axle, and that'll become important when we talk about the limitations of this vehicle. We just left them on the standard Ford rims. Even so, I still reckon they look pretty cool. Okay, this is the ARB Summit bar, and we had it color coded to the Everest. Now before we go any further, I had ARB Wangara do the fit out of all the 4-wheel drive accessories on this vehicle. Basically, in my opinion, this is one of the best looking bars on the market, and because of that I got ARB to do the rest of the work as well. Now why get a bull bar? They're heavy, they're not aerodynamic, and they're expensive. Well, basically if you're out on those country roads, animal strikes are always a threat. And at least with a bull bar, if you do strike an animal, yes, you will sustain damage still, but those critical engine components like the radiator that are mounted up the front here will be saved, and you can keep going, you can get to your destination. Or if you're off the beaten track, you can get yourself back to civilization. If you hit an animal at 80, 90, 100 Ks an hour without a bull bar, you're done. You're not going anywhere. Your radiator coolant is spread all over the road, and you are 100% reliable on someone coming to rescue you. Very important in my opinion. Now a bull bar also increases your angle of attack, and it exposes more of the tyre, making those more difficult tracks a little easier to tackle. Plus, it gives you somewhere to mount other accessories. Now anyone who owns a Ford Everest knows how terrible the standard headlights are, even the high beams. They're shocking. You'd be driving down a country road doing 60 Ks an hour, terrified that you're going to end up in a ditch. So that's why we had these bad boys fitted. These are the ARB Intensity Solace 9-inch LED driving lights, and these things throw a ton of light. We've got one spot to penetrate down the road and one flood to illuminate out to the sides, and the difference with these things is night and day. So while we're still up the front here, we've got a transmission cooler fitted. Before we had that installed, when we were towing, we were getting transmission fluid temperatures in excess of 120 degrees for hours on end. Now that will destroy the effectiveness of your transmission fluid and eventually the reliability of your transmission. So we opted for a dual core PWR transmission cooler. Ever since having this cooler fitted, our transmission temperatures haven't gone above 68 degrees. As I said before, we went with ARB for the fit out of the four-wheel drive accessories on this vehicle. So we went with their Old Man Emu suspension. It gave us a 40mm lift. We opted for heavy duty springs in the front to take the weight of the bull bar and all the accessories we have fitted up there. And as you can see here, with the standard Everest suspension, this lower control arm was resting on this bump stop. Now with the Old Man Emu suspension, we're up off those bump stops and the vehicle is sitting nice and proud. We went for medium springs in the back for ride quality when unloaded. And we got Airbag Man airbags fitted for when we're fully loaded, towing the Robbo. Now airbags shouldn't be confused with weight distribution hitches. They're a totally different product with different applications and different pros and cons. A weight distribution hitch applies a torque to your vehicle to help level it out and transfer some weight back onto that front axle. Airbags basically just stiffen your spring rating, leveling you out for ride comfort when you're fully loaded. These airbags can take a maximum pressure of 60 psi, which can be filled from the valves at the back of the car. You can't use weight distribution hitches off-road, so that's why we went for the airbags. Okay, so what we have here is an ARB rated recovery point. Now this thing is going to split opinions. So according to the guys at ARB, they recommend the recovery points be low and central, so you don't run the risk of twisting your chassis during a recovery. Now a lot of other guys prefer to have their recovery points mounted higher and further forward on the chassis rails, or even incorporated into the design of some bull bars. Now opponents of this setup will say, if you're in a bog hole, good luck accessing it, which is a pretty good point. But that's why I think if you're ever going to perform any sort of water crossing, you need to have your winch already rolled out, or your snatch strap attached and looped around your bull bar, ready for a quick recovery. Either way, that's what we went for. Okay, so this is our safari snorkel. Basically, when we had the bull bar installed, a large percentage of the original bumper was cut away and discarded. Now those bumpers are designed with water crossings in mind. They push water down and away from the air intake. With that bumper now gone, we run the risk of sucking water through that intake into the engine. Not good. Now the air intake is all the way up here. So if I manage to suck water in from up there, I've got bigger problems. Plus that intake noise does sound pretty cool as well. Alright, so what we got here is a 12-pin trailer plug socket. That came standard with the Everest, but we did have to get an ignition wire run to pin 12 to trigger the DC charger mounted in the Robbo, to not only take charge from its solar panel, but also to take charge from the vehicle's alternator. Now that gets charged through this 50mm Anderson plug. That is wired directly to the starter battery with a 50 amp fuse and a voltage sensitive relay, so we don't flatten our starter battery when we leave that connected on our quick overnight stops. Pretty standard stuff really. Anyone who does any sort of caravan or camper trailer towing will have a very similar setup to that. Okay, so nothing exciting up here. We just got a 3m by 3m awning. And up the top here, we got 4 max tracks and a long handled shovel for those recoveries, all mounted on Rhino rack roof bars. We did used to have a platform up here, but ever since having the Robbo, everything that we used to store up here is now on the trailer. So it's just 25 kilos sitting here doing nothing, so we got rid of it. Other than that, nothing too interesting happening up here. Alright guys, so let's just move to the inside. Now, the Ford Everest is completely starved of spare switch locations. So we had this light force switch fascia installed. It gave us 3 extra switch locations. This one is for our driving lights, this one is for our Tow Pro Elite electric brake controller, and this one is left blank for any future accessories we might fit. Now our UHF of choice is the GME XRS 370. The main unit is hidden in the glove box, so it keeps the dash uncluttered. It's a fantastic little unit, and we have it paired up with a 2.1 decibel aerial mounted on the bull bar. And it lives in this handy little magnetic mount. Right, to monitor the engine temperatures while I'm towing, I went with quite a cheap and simple option. I just got this OBD2 dongle from eBay. It was about 30 bucks, and I just have that paired up with an old phone that I have mounted on the windscreen. All the pages are customizable. The main things that I keep an eye on are the transmission fluid temperatures, the engine coolant temperatures, the exhaust gas temperatures, and the voltages. Alright guys, well, all in all, I think the Everest is a reasonably capable tourer. Given our time again, it wouldn't be our first choice, because it certainly does have some limitations. For starters, it does get quite warm. Now that could be a result of everything I've fitted up the front here, restricting airflow to the radiator. It could also be that the cooling system was a little bit undercooked during R&D when they first produced this model. Now I have heard of other Everest owners struggling with their engine getting quite warm, even in a standard configuration. But even so, I generally drive quite conservatively. It's the safe thing to do when you're towing 2 ton. Right? I don't need to go 100 k's an hour everywhere. You know, I don't mind sitting on 95, even 90. I'll always monitor the temperatures, and if I notice it getting a little bit warm, I'll just back it down a little bit. I haven't got a problem at all. I'd rather get to my destination safely and in one piece than to get there half an hour early. The other major limitation with this vehicle as a tourer is its payload. All wagons suffer from the same issue, especially once you start bolting accessories on. Look, I'd love to have a winch and a second battery and a fridge in the boot and rock sliders. I just don't have the payload available to me. Look, we're only small people. Our kids are still young, but even so, we're still knocking on that door of our GVM limit, which in this vehicle is 3.1 ton. Now, as the kids get a little bit older and heavier, we might have to start shedding some weight to the Robbo. We might have to remove the max tracks, put them on the boat rack. We might have to remove the recovery gear that I have in the boot, put that in the trailer. That'll probably save us about 45 kilos right there. We could also remove the 3rd row of seats and install a false floor. So the problem isn't insurmountable. I don't want to have to keep moving things back and forward, but if I have to, I have to. Now, there is a GVM upgrade option available for this car. What that does is it takes you up to a combination of the front and rear axle load limits stipulated by Ford. That will get us up to 3.23 ton. That's an increase of only 130 kilos. Now, I won't know if that's a viable option until I get this thing fully loaded with the Robbo in tow and take it back over the weighbridge, calculate what those current individual axle loads are. It may be an option. Hey, we all need options, right? The only problem with that upgrade is it's 3 grand. That's a lot of money just for 130 kilos. We'll see. We'll see. Good to have options. Well, anyway, that's pretty much it, guys. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of it. If you've got any questions, hit us up. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and we'll catch you out there.